We have 11 amazing restaurants featuring a wide variety for every price range and appetite. South Point's Garden Buffet has something for everyone at unbeatable prices. Or, if hunger strikes in the middle of the night, join us at Coronado Cafe. The American menu offers breakfast, lunch, or dinner 24 hours a day, plus a Chinese kitchen for authentic Chinese dishes from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. From steak and eggs to wonton soup, it's fast and friendly service 24/7. When you need a quick pick-me-up, you can find it at our state-of-the-art Starbucks just inside the main South Point entrance. Order ahead with the Starbucks app for easy mobile order pickups. Or enjoy your favorites in the relaxing dining area anytime, day or night. If you love Mexican food, Baja Miguel's has all of your south-of-the-border favorites. There are dozens of classics to choose from, like fajitas, ceviche, chimichangas, tacos, and more. And for spirit lovers, Baja's colorful non-smoking tequila bar is right outside. Or maybe you're in the mood for seafood. Big Sur Oyster Bar has fresh seafood prepared right before your eyes. Savor freshly shucked oysters, crab legs jambalaya, shrimp and lobster. Beers on tap and a selection of fine wines are perfect to pair with your seafood favorite. Whether lunch or dinner, you'll love this fun atmosphere, located just off the casino floor. Ready to shake things up? Step back in time and treat yourself to one of the oldest restaurant chains in the country. Steak and Shake, famous for original mouth-watering steak burgers and hand-dipped milkshakes in a variety of flavors. For some old-fashioned fun, try Steak and Shake.
Welcome in. Good morning. It is Sports by the Book here on a Thursday morning. Jeff Parles, happy to be with you as always. The shorter card of things here today. Yeah, there's a slate of hockey, a slate of NBA. Even though, again, we know the rules on this show. Ryan McCormick's allowed to hit me aside the head if a regular NBA pre-flop wager is made by me. So that's remember that's the rule for the show. But we have a bowl game. Not the most exciting bowl game, but again, it's been a very funky start to bowl season, and yet again another game with at least a field goal move, which has been the theme so far for this bowl season. We're only one day away from the college football playoff getting underway tomorrow in Notre Dame Stadium. So we'll talk about that. And of course, we have an NFL game to be had here tonight between the Denver Broncos and the Los Angeles Chargers. A big game in the AFC. And, let's just start there here tonight as the Chargers, coming off of really what was a train wreck of a second half against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this past Sunday. So the Chargers lost 2 in a row after going from 3-3 on the year to 8-4. 5 out of 6 for LA in that stretch, with their only loss being to the Ravens. Now, granted, if you now look at the Chargers this year, and you look at the teams they have defeated and the teams they have lost to, here's the Chargers' wins so far this year. Raiders, Carolina when it was pre-Bryce Young benching. So I guess that's PBYB at that point. The Broncos early in the year, week 6, before Knicks really turned the corner. The Saints, the Browns, the Titans, the Bengals, and the Falcons. So what did I do there? I listed maybe half a good team when they played them. Broncos weren't good at that point. Falcons, even though the record's fine, is a mess. We know what's wrong with Cincinnati this year. The defense stinks. So they haven't beaten anyone. And then you look at the losses, twice to Kansas City. So, all right, so they have 6 losses. Kansas City twice, that's 2 losses against playoff team. Pittsburgh, that's 3. Baltimore, that's 4. Last week against Tampa's 5, and then the Arizona game, all right. Again, your Cardinals, again, have fallen off. But again, a team that's 500 right now in Arizona. So they have right now, if you're just going record by record, the only team who's currently over 500 that these Los Angeles Chargers have defeated is the Denver Broncos. That's it. It's the only one. They've been good against the spread. They're 9-5 against the spread last week, of course, getting just housed in the second half by Tampa. That was 27-0 in the second half. The Bucs beat them in a 40-17 rout when it was all said and done for Tampa, who's in control of that NFC South now. So we always have questions every year of, all right, who are these teams any good, or is anyone, are these teams fraudulent or not? And look, as much as I like Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh, especially together, and Herbert looked like he had turned a corner, and then, of course, looked like he re-injured himself last week. They haven't beaten anyone. They haven't beaten a good team all year. Because when they played Denver, Denver was not good at that point. Denver was still, to me, considered a bottom-tier NFL team. And then you look on the Broncos side, and you know what? Quite frankly, the Denver Broncos have the exact same problem. They haven't beaten anyone this year either. Their best win is that week three game at Tampa, where I'm still chalking that up as a scenario where the Broncos were 0-2. They had looked awful in those first two games, especially Bo Nix had looked awful. And the Bucs didn't take them seriously. And at that point, we didn't know how good the Denver defense was. But again, you look at the opponents and who they've played. Denver's 5 losses. 4 of those 5 teams would be going to the playoffs today. Kansas City, Baltimore, the Steelers, and the Chargers. Now, yes, they should have beaten Kansas City. That was the blocked field goal game. Their only other loss was week 1 against Seattle. Might have beaten them later in the year. But there's your schedule. Look at who they've beaten. Their best win other than Tampa. What is their best win after Tampa this year? Atlanta? So both of these teams, you could argue their second best win is the Falcons. That's not a good argument for anyone involved, if that's the case. Denver's beaten Tampa, the Jets, Vegas twice, New Orleans, Carolina, and Cleveland, and Atlanta. Not exactly murderer's row that the Broncos have defeated. Last week, if Jonathan Taylor doesn't pull a Deshaun Jackson, they probably lose that game. That game completely flipped on its head after Taylor's idiocy. It was going to be 17-6. Instead, it was 10-6, and Denver dominated the game the rest of the way. Or excuse me, it was going to be 20-6. Denver outscored them 25-0 at the rest of the way. So then you enter tonight's game, where the first meeting between these teams was back in week 6. Again, that was before Bo Nix at least turned the corner to being somewhat competent. And the Chargers got out 23-0 and then stopped playing in the fourth quarter. Denver ended up losing that game by 7. Kicked the field goal at the end, didn't recover an onside kick. But again, that was a 23-16 defeat of the Broncos, a win for the Chargers. Now, remember at that point, the Charger defense, that was in the midst of the stretch where the Charger defense hadn't allowed more than 20 in a game. Remember, the first for the Chargers, until that game against Tennessee, no games had even reached the 40s that year. So their first 8 games all went under 40. And since then, 44 with the Titans, 61 against the Bengals, 53 Ravens, and then 30 with Atlanta. Remember, Chargers didn't score an offensive touchdown and still won that game. Thank you, Kirk Cousins, who's now on the bench. Michael Penix, of course, starting now in Atlanta. Chiefs was 36, and then last week was 57 with that debacle against the Bucs. So if you're looking to tonight, where this game opened 3, and it got moved to 2.5 by the bettors, as low as 2 even here at the South Point. Total 42, down to 41.5. This feels like one of these games tonight where, again, the Chargers, both, to me, again, I thought last week had more to do with the fact that the Colts opened the door for the Broncos, and to their credit, the Broncos came busting through that door. You had the Taylor idiocy. You had the Adonai Mitchell throwing back across the field, but then McBenito picked 6th. And then the game was completely over after that. And you had Anthony Richardson, who was unable to really complete a pass in that game. It's a big step up in competition, even with the Chargers' struggles right now for the Broncos. The only thing that makes any sense to me is betting the under in this game. I still like both of these defenses. I know the Chargers got destroyed in the second half last week, but you know what? When Tampa's humming and Mike Evans now healthy, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a top-tier offense to me. Especially Baker Mayfield's going to play like he's played. Crazy how well Mayfield has played. The Bucs, who really were an afterthought about 6 weeks ago, are now, I think, safely in the playoffs at this rate. I think they'll get there. I think they're winning out. But for tonight, I'm still relying on what we've seen from both of these teams all year through. They're still good defenses, both of these teams. If the Chargers win tonight, by the way, it's going to be very difficult for the Chargers and the Broncos to not both be in the postseason when it's all said and done. Right now, betting odds, if you're looking for books that have those odds available, you're laying $10 on both of these teams to make the postseason right now. Some books even have the Broncos as high as you're laying $12. That's minus 1,200 if you're looking at your odds there. But when this is all said and done, this all comes back to the defenses. They're the best units on the field. Now, Knicks, in that first game, again, I really don't want to look at Knicks until that New Orleans game on that Thursday night was really the first time. And yes, I know his numbers were fine against the Raiders in that game that they won 34-18. But that was really the game, that New Orleans game, where Knicks kind of turned it. Then he had the bad game against Baltimore, which that was just a burn the tape day for the Broncos. And then Knicks has played well other than that. Indy, he did not play well last week. Last week was more so everyone else around him bailed him out. I know he ended up throwing 3 touchdowns, but he did not play well in that game. Just watch the tape. 3 bad interceptions, and he only threw for $130. So this is an under. This is the only thing I'd even look at tonight. Sidewise, 2.5 with the Chargers. You know what? The numbers feel right. I think the Chargers should be shy of a field goal right now with the way that everything's gone. Justin Herbert did fully practice yesterday. Again, it's a short week, so it's not really like actual practice because it's a walkthrough during this week, except for Tuesday. But Herbert was full if they actually had practice, which is good. Again, battling that ankle where he's been on and off with that all year long. Will Desley and Cam Hart are the only guys who have been ruled out who are not on IR. McLaughlin and Riley Moss on the other side for the Denver Broncos. Surtain had been battling with an ankle. He's fine. But this feels like one of these big-time under, not much happens in this game sort of deals. On Football Frenzy at 3 o'clock, we'll go through more of the props, as we usually do. But I am almost certainly going to be betting Bo Nix to throw an interception tonight. I'm almost certainly going to be on that. I'm looking for a little bit better than the minus 145, which is what DK currently has. Shop around. If you can get down to $1.30, I think you're good on laying that with Nix if you wanted to. Herbert's interception streak ended last week as well. Again, I just don't see a lot of scoring in this game. I think this is an under game at 41.5. Was looking really for a 42, but those are gone. 41.5, 41 is where we're at right now on this. But we'll see how it all plays out right now with the Chargers 2.5-point favorites. Again, the winner, if the Chargers win tonight, it basically puts us in a scenario where everyone who's at 6 and 8 right now, which is Indianapolis, Miami, and Cincy, it puts them in a scenario because the Chargers the next 2 weeks, are going to be big favorites in New England and big favorites here in Las Vegas. They probably will win both of those games if they split they're in. It puts them in a scenario where the Broncos would have to lose out, and they would also need to get some help, all those teams. The Broncos' remaining schedule after tonight, they go to Cincinnati in that Saturday game, and then they host Kansas City, who, if KC wins the next 2 weeks, the Chiefs will have the 1 seed wrapped up. And we know Andy Reid historically does not play his guys, and I would imagine more so than ever will not play his guys, especially Patrick Mahomes nursing that injury right now, the high ankle sprain, where it looks like he's probably going to give it a go on Saturday against Houston. Again, the Broncos right now, and that win, that game last week was gigantic for them. Just finding a way to win that game puts them in a scenario where they should be able to end what is the second longest streak in the NFL of missing the playoffs. Broncos have not been in the playoffs since they won Super Bowl 50. It has been almost a whole decade without the Broncos in the playoffs, which for how consistent this franchise has basically been its entire existence, pretty shocking to say the very least. But the under is the play for me today with the Broncos and the Chargers. All right. I want to look at this bowl game tonight real quick. The New Orleans Bowl down in Louisiana at the Dome. Now, I'll just tell you this. I'm really in a scenario here for this one today where with all these bowl games, it's so hard to bet these pre-flop because, again, you could have a scenario like last night, and again, it didn't impact you if you had a UNLV in any number, but he didn't find out that Ricky White was out until there were 30 minutes, but 35 minutes before the game. He had no idea. No clue. Didn't matter last night because Cal was down to their fourth quarterback by the end of the game, and it looked like if you put either me or Sean or Ryan out there in a high-end D1 game playing quarterback. It was not pretty. It was not pretty at all. But 24-13, that game went under. UNLV covered all numbers. But this is another one. Sam Houston State, Georgia Southern, I should say. Georgia Southern, 4-point favorites, down from 7. Sam Houston State, of course, Casey Keeler, their coach, took the job at Temple. So an interim for them tonight. Look, I would like to see what happens in game. The total's been bopped up 1.5 points. Very curious to see what the effort is on the Georgia Southern side. A lot of their guys in the portal. Again, this is going to be the case with a lot of these teams, especially in the smaller conferences. Guys in the portal, they miss the bowl games, unless if they happen to make a college football playoff for the Sun Belt or the MAC or the CUSA at this point, more so than the American and the Mountain West. Again, Boise State, of course, in there already. UNLV, again, mostly a few guys opted out. You saw Jackson Woodard play. You saw Haj Malik Williams play. Granted, Haj Malik Williams is out of eligibility. It would have been silly for him not to play. But you saw the guys out there. Ricky White, of course, going to the NFL, which, one of the better wide receivers, if not the best wide receiver in UNLV program history. All right. I'll take a quick break. When we get back, college football playoff, one day away from it getting going in Notre Dame. We'll look at those current numbers. We'll look at all those games, and then we'll look at tonight in the NBA, college hoops, small card, and a few hockey plays for you all out the door when we get back. Sports by the Book here on a Thursday morning.
South Point Casino has plenty of attractions for the whole family. Catch a movie. Our 16-screen movie theater includes 2 XD Extreme screens for the ultimate in viewing, sound, and luxury. After the show, treat the family to a variety of treats at our old-fashioned ice cream parlor, Kate's Corner. We scoop up a variety of creamy concoctions, including smoothies, hand-dipped cones, milkshakes, malts, sodas, and sundaes. At Kate's, there's something for everyone. And if you've still got time to spare, our bowling center might be right up your alley. Voted Best of Las Vegas, it's a great place for friends and family fun. 64 lanes, a pro shop, snack bar, and arcade. And while the kids are bowling, you can play slots and sip on a drink in the Alley Cat Lounge while overlooking the lanes. For our more serious and professional bowlers, the South Point is also home to a separate tournament bowling plaza.
Welcome back in Sports by the Book here on a Thursday morning. Jeff Parles, happy to be with you as always. All right, let's go to the college football playoff. You throw the bracket up there, Sean, for everybody. Just if you have been busy with other things, the college football playoff is out. We know what the bracket is. We've known it for about 10 days now. Of course, there it is. Begins tomorrow night with that bottom of the bracket, 10 versus 7. Notre Dame and Indiana with the winner going to New Orleans to take on the Georgia Bulldogs in the Sugar Bowl. And then it actually works pretty nicely. Penn State SMU at noon Eastern on Sunday. Winner of that goes to Phoenix or Phoenix area to the Fiesta Bowl to take on Boise. Then on Saturday after mid-afternoon. Texas hosting Clemson. Winner of that game goes to Atlanta to take on Arizona State in the Peach Bowl. And then Ohio State, Tennessee, 8-9 game. The winner of that goes to the Rose Bowl to take on Oregon on New Year's Day. So just looking at these numbers real quick, starting with Notre Dame, and Indiana's been all about the Hoosiers from 9-7. And I'm going to be quite honest with you. I don't get it. I really don't get it. I understand. All right, maybe you take a number here and there. I don't get this move all the way down to the 7 because I just think Notre Dame is a significantly better football team. And look, Indiana had an amazing season, 11 wins, most in program history. A nothing program that year one with Kirk Cignetti is in the college football playoff, 100-1 to just make the field. To just make the field 100-1. Unbelievable season. I don't think they compete with Notre Dame's speed. And you look at Indiana this year, and again, they deserve to be here. I don't get the argument from someone like, they don't deserve to be here. They're not the playoff quality. They won 11 games in the Big Ten. They won 11 games. And before the 5-point win against Michigan and them getting thrashed at Ohio Stadium, they were beating the bejesus out of everybody. They destroyed everyone. How could you not put this in? They deserve to be here. Now, do they deserve to be here, and can they win at Notre Dame Stadium are two different, completely different questions. Where Notre Dame is just more talented. And since the loss to Northern Illinois, again, if it wasn't for the loss to Northern Illinois, Notre Dame's the 5 seed in this thing, and they're getting Clemson as opposed to this, which you could argue that maybe Indiana is actually an easier opponent than Clemson. You could argue that. But all this comes down to, for me, with Notre Dame, is it just as long as Riley Leonard protects the football, I think Notre Dame's winning this game going away. And 7, I thought 10 was a better number, honestly. I like the 9.5 better than the 7. I've laid it with Notre Dame. I have 12-1 on the Irish as well. Those numbers don't exist anymore. Best number out there I saw to win the national title was 8-1. They got 12 before the bracket was revealed. But this is a Notre Dame team with a draw that they got that is more than capable of making a college football final and winning the darn thing. But again, when it's all said and done, I think this is Notre Dame 7 in this game, 7-1 behind us here at the South Point. I would lay that 7 very happily with Notre Dame. Those are the odds, by the way, on the screen, just to my right on the screen. Oregon plus 280, Texas plus 375, Georgia 5-1, plus 550 on Penn State, 7-1 on Notre Dame and Penn State. Everyone else 20-1 or longer. I don't know if there's anyone on that right side of the screen that's worth betting. I think all the winners coming from the shorter than 10-1 odds at this rate for this national champion. All right. Quick hitters on the other games real quick, just to update you where the lines are at right now. Penn State's an 8.5-point favorite against SMU. I do lean to the Ponies, but not particularly strong on that one. Probably look in game, see if we can get the Ponies more than 8.5. Clemson's up to a 12-point underdog against Texas. I just want to see how high this gets because I like Clemson. I'm just going to try to take as many points as I humanly can at this rate, all the way up to 12. And boy, there will be some money line sprinkling, to say the very least, on the Clemson Tigers. Best number in the market right now is over at our friends at the Westgate, plus 375 on the Superbook. And then Ohio State and Tennessee, Buckeyes 7.5, pretty steady on that for about the last 8 days. Curious to see if this goes up back to 8 or if this goes back to 7, goes down to 7 for the first time by the time they kick off that final game of the day at 8 o'clock East, 5 o'clock Pacific at Ohio Stadium. All right. Quick shout to the chat. Blade, have we ever figured out who Blade Nicotera is? Ever figured that out? No? Always love seeing Blade in there. Dean Hilt, Jerry, Sean, Vince. Oh, Sean. Wow, Sean's actually not busy today. That's good in the chat here today. Always enjoying seeing everyone in there here today. All right. Let's go to some college hoops, some quick hitters on college hoops, NBA, hockey before we get out of here today. Let's start in the SEC, where the SEC, as of this moment, is the highest rated conference I've ever had in my parlay rankings. The Georgia Bulldogs, who are one of the weaker teams in the SEC, but when you're one of the weaker teams in the SEC, you're an NCAA tournament caliber team. They host the Buffalo Bulls, who have turned into quite the disaster, which is surprising because this is a Buffalo program that even with their issues they've had over the last few years, they fired Jim Whitesale a few years ago after being a gigantic underachiever. They bring in George Halcove, and they won 4 games last year. They're 5-5 right now, so they technically have improved. But this is not a well-coached basketball team. Now, this is all a tolerance thing. Do you feel comfortable laying 27 points with the Georgia Bulldogs? I do today, especially with how dominant the SEC is. In the SEC, I mean, again, Georgia's not on the caliber of Auburn or Tennessee, but both of those teams covered numbers in the high 30s the other day. Auburn even covered 40 against the non-total pushover. But I would lay 27 against Georgia with Georgia. Let's try that again. I would lay 27 with Georgia here against Buffalo. That would be the first one on the docket here for me today in the college hoops realm. The next one, good mid-major battle between UC Irvine and Belmont. Again, of course, remember Belmont in the Missouri Valley right now. Irvine is number 62 in KenPom. Their only loss is in Corvallis against Oregon State. But I do like the homestanding Bruins in this game at home. Weird travel game for Irvine going east to Nashville. Belmont this year, they lost to Furman by 2. They lost to Loyola Marymount on a neutral. They really got clocked in that game, actually. That was in Mexico. But other than that, they've been pretty consistent. Now, this is really just a hyper Belmont team under Casey Alexander, really closer to Casey Alexander's Lipscomb teams back in the day. Super good offense, terrible defense, very fast pace. And the one thing I'll say, Irvine is more than willing to play a quick pace, and Irvine is a really good defensive team. But I do like Belmont's offense, the way Belmont plays offense, to be able to score enough and win this game outright, plus 120 on the Bruins of Belmont here. We'll take them at home against UC Irvine. All right, and then the last one, we're going to the extra board. Norfolk State, Alabama State, at Mohegan Sun Arena. So I'm up in Connecticut here today. I like the favorite in this one. I like Norfolk State laying 5. There's some 4.5 in the marketplace. Norfolk State is very good. I know they're 6-6, and you may say, all right, how good they can be in the 6-6 record. I mean, look at their losses. There's really only one loss they probably shouldn't have taken, and that was that game against William and Mary. Other than that, all right, you're competitive against Stanford. You lose a Grand Canyon legit top 100 team. You lose to Baylor. Hofstra is a solid team. Same deal with Northern Kentucky. The Norfolk State team is just much better and should be able to exploit the sub-300 defense of the Hornets of Alabama State in this game. So I'll lay the 5 on a neutral with Norfolk State against the Hornets of Alabama State. All right, let's go to the NBA and hockey before we get out of here today. On the NBA side of things, huge card with everyone back in action after the NBA Cup concluded. We'll start in Orlando. Oklahoma City takes on the Magic. We're taking 6.5. That would be the lean here with the Magic against the Thunder. Again, Oklahoma City was here in Vegas 2 days ago. You lose the NBA Cup final. I just wonder if you're sluggish. Again, a lot of these teams who didn't make it here to Vegas have not played a lot over the last 2 weeks. But I know Orlando's all injured. I understand that. It's going to be a while before we see Wagner and Banchero. But we'll take 6.5 with Orlando at home at the Kia Center with the Magic, even against one of the NBA's elite in the Thunder. Warriors and the Grizzlies, I'll lay 2.5 with the Grizz at home. I also don't mind this game under 236, even though, again, the Warriors are coming off that batty game against the Dallas Mavericks on Sunday, where the Warriors set the record for the most threes in the first half, while we're still losing at halftime. But we'll lay the 2.5 with the Grizz in this one. The return game to Minneapolis for Karl Anthony Towns tonight. This is can you remember a narrative regular season game like this that hasn't involved like the tippy top of the league in the way of players, other than maybe Klay Thompson earlier this year going back to the Bay. But Towns back to Minneapolis. Knicks a dog in this one against the Timberwolves. Total is super low for an NBA game in 2024, 214.5. I would only lean to the under. But again, tread carefully when we're talking about totals in the two teens at this point in the NBA. And then the Lakers and the Kings. The Lakers have been a train wreck since that really good opening start to the year. Kings really gave away a game after a big comeback against the Nuggets last time out. This would only be a look to the over at 228. I expect this to be paced correctly, that we get ourselves both teams into two teams, and that should be enough on this one for the over 228 on the Lakers and the Kings. All right, 4 hockey games here today that I'm looking at. We start in Columbus. The lowly Blue Jackets hosting the New Jersey Devils. I very rarely do this. I don't like going over 6.5. You did miss 6 over minus 125 earlier. That was the better one, but 6.5, especially if you get minus 110 or minus 105, you can go over that with the Devils and the Blue Jackets. Again, Blue Jackets goaltending's terrible. If you get 3 out of Columbus here in this game, you're getting there easily. I think this also might be a New Jersey puck line play as well in this one, along with that. Excuse me, along with that over at 6.5 on the Devils and the Blue Jackets. All right, let's go to Philadelphia next. My goodness. The Flyers hosting the Kings, 155 on the Kings, 5.5 on the total. We're looking under again. Kings were just one of these great defensive teams. And again, the Flyers have struggled offensively at times this year. So we'll go under 5.5 on the Kings and the Flyers in Philadelphia. In Nashville tonight, this was once a Stanley Cup final game, final series, a long way back. Of course, Penguins won the Cup that year. It's been all about Nashville in the market from minus 140 to minus 155. We're going to go against the market here, and we're going to wait for the biggest price possible on Pittsburgh. If we get plus 140, this will be a play, but I think plus one, there's a plus 140 in the market at the Superbook. You can take that on the Penguins right now against the Preds at plus 140. And then here in Vegas tonight, the Canucks and VGK, we're going to go over the total at 5.5. Lower total will take it over on VGK and the Canucks. All right. That's what we got for you here in the morning edition. Afternoon edition comes your way at 3, Football Frenzy. Ryan McCormick and I will be here. Ryan McCormick, fresh off his trip to watch the Giants be unable to cover a 17-point spread. You also got to see Tim Boyle, which is also a work of art in its own right. So Ryan will be with us. We'll have our predictions as well for the college football playoff, along with a big-time preview, including props on the Broncos and the Chargers at 3 o'clock right here on this channel. Sean, Ryan, Ann, thank you as always. Thank you to everyone in the chat. Dean, Blade, Nicotera again. Thank you as always for being in there. I'm Jeff Parles. We'll see you again at 3 o'clock right here on Sports by the Book with Football Frenzy.